We all have a pretty solid sense of what's good and what's evil, right? Be kind, be humble, don't be selfish. These feel like universal truths, but have you ever really truly stopped to ask, where did we get these ideas from? Well, the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche did, and his answer is one of the most explosive and challenging in the history of thought. He basically argued that our entire moral compass is built on a lie, a secret, ancient act of revenge. So let's treat this whole thing like a detective story. We're going to investigate the origins of our most deeply held beliefs. You could say Nietzsche put Western morality on trial, and the evidence he dug up is just as unsettling today as it was more than 100 years ago. And the central crime he claimed to uncover? A total, complete reversal of values. Okay, here's our first big clue, and it's a really simple question. Just think about it for a second. In the ancient world, in heroic cultures like ancient Greece, pride, power, and strength, those were the ultimate virtues. The strong, the noble, they were the good. But today, we often value the total opposite: meekness, humility, compassion for the weak. So how on earth did the values of the powerful become sins, and the qualities of the powerless become the ultimate virtues? This is the core mystery Nietzsche was obsessed with solving. To crack the case, Nietzsche points to his primary suspect. It's a psychological poison he called ressentiment. It's a French word, and he used it on purpose because it describes a very specific, very nasty kind of deep-seated, simmering hatred. Now, Nietzsche's idea here is so powerful because this isn't just regular anger or envy. No. Ressentiment is what happens when you're too weak to do anything about your hatred. You can't get revenge, so that poisonous feeling gets pushed down deep inside. It stews, it broods, it turns inward, and after a while, it gets creative. It actually invents a whole new way of looking at the world. And this is where we see two completely different ways of being. You have the strong, what Nietzsche called the master type. They get insulted, and they react, bam, right away. The anger is out, maybe they fight a duel or say something sharp, and then it's over. They forget about it. But the weak, the slave type, well, they can't do that. They're powerless. So they remember. They have to. And their inability to act forces that hatred to get clever, to find a different, more subtle way out. And that clever, inventive hatred is what leads to the main event in Nietzsche's story, what he famously called the slave revolt in morality. This is the moment, he says, where the powerless get their ultimate revenge, not by fighting armies, but by convincing everyone, including their own masters, that their weakness is actually a strength. So let's just break this down. In master morality, good is just a celebration of self. It's the powerful saying, hey, we're strong, we're healthy, we're noble, we're the good ones. Bad is just an afterthought, something they call the weak people below them. But slave morality starts from the outside. It looks up at the masters, and its first creative act is to say, you, the powerful, are evil. And only then, as a reaction, does it say, therefore we, the meek, the poor, the suffering, we must be the good. It's a total flip. And you can just hear the passion in Nietzsche's own words right here as he channels the voice of this moral revolution. He actually traced the beginning of this revolt back to the ancient Jews, who, in their long struggle against powerful empires like Rome, pulled off what he called an act of spiritual revenge. They recast their oppressors as evil and reimagined their own suffering as a sign of goodness and piety. Now, according to Nietzsche, this new slave morality found the perfect vehicle to conquer the world: Christianity. It took these values of meekness, humility, and piety and spread them across the entire Western world. For almost 2,000 years, this became the bedrock of meaning and purpose. But in his own time, Nietzsche saw that foundation starting to crumble. He could feel the ground shifting, opening up into a new and frankly terrifying crisis. This is it. Nietzsche's most famous and most misunderstood statement. He wasn't celebrating. He was sounding an alarm. He didn't mean a literal God had died in the sky. He meant that the belief in the Christian God, the very foundation of Western morality for centuries, was no longer believable for thinking people. We had, through science and reason, killed that belief ourselves, and now a massive void was opening up. So what happens when God is dead? The direct consequence is nihilism. If there's no divine plan, no ultimate judge, then all the values we built on that idea, good, evil, purpose, they all come crashing down. We're left with that chilling, sinking feeling that maybe nothing matters.
that life is meaningless. This, for Nietzsche, was the great sickness of modern times, a profound exhaustion with humanity itself.
But here's the twist. Nietzsche wasn't just a prophet of doom. He saw this terrifying crisis as a tremendous opportunity. If the old values are dead, that means we have the terrifying freedom and the profound responsibility to create new ones. This is the path beyond good and evil. This is the challenge of what he called the Übermensch. He uses this incredible metaphor to explain the journey. First, he says, the human spirit is like a camel. It kneels down and accepts the heavy burdens of traditional morality, all the rules, all the thou shalts. But to be free, the spirit has to become a lion, to fight that great dragon of tradition and roar, I will. But just destroying things isn't enough. To truly create, the spirit must finally become a child, a new beginning, innocent, playful, capable of creating its own values and saying a sacred yes to life. And this journey is what leads to the Übermensch, or the overman. Now, it is absolutely critical to understand this has nothing to do with a superior race. That was a horrific distortion by the Nazis. For Nietzsche, the Übermensch is an individual goal. It's that rare person who has gone through these changes, who has the strength to stare into a meaningless universe and create their own table of values, affirming life on its own terms without needing any permission from a god or a tradition. So how do you know if you're on this path? Well, Nietzsche offers the ultimate test, a crazy thought experiment called eternal recurrence. Imagine a demon sneaks up to you and tells you that this life you're living right now, with every single joy and every single pain, will be repeated forever, an infinite number of times. Would that thought crush you, or would you thank the demon for the news? To love your fate, what he called amor fati, so much that you'd want to live it again and again, well, that is the ultimate affirmation of life. That's the mindset of the overman. But here's the thing. Nietzsche's whole challenge isn't really about reaching some perfect final state. The real meaning, the real point, is found in the struggle itself, in the process of becoming something more. This quote right here, it just captures everything. We are a transition. We're this rope stretched out over a massive abyss between our animal past and some future potential that we ourselves have to create. The greatness isn't about getting to the other side. The greatness is in being the bridge, in the constant act of overcoming ourselves. The journey itself is the whole point. And so after this whole wild journey, Nietzsche's philosophy brings us right back to ourselves with this one final, profound question. In a world where all the old signs are gone, where do you find your direction? If you couldn't rely on any inherited sense of good or evil, and you had to build your own meaning from the ground up, what would you choose to value above everything else?